It was. Why is this thing acting up? Welcome back to a second chance. We have a very awesome show for you this evening. My name is Philip Jones, kidney transplant recipient.
And my name is Tifiro Cook, two-time kidney transplant recipient and founder of Kidney Care Coaches, where we coach people with stage 3 to stage 5 kidney disease. If you or you know someone who has kidney disease challenges and needs to be coached with those, hit us up at kidneycarecoaches.com.
So today we have a very special guest for you all, Mr. Lee Newton-Rhodes, 2024 presidential candidate. Lee, how are you today?
I'm doing real good. I don't know who did that opening, but kudos. I really enjoyed that.
I did too.
Appreciate that. Appreciate it. So like I said before, I'll start off with some questions, and I'm gonna turn it over to my man, Mr. Cook. So my first question is, well, it's not really a question, but give us a little bit about your background. Tell whatever you want the people to know about Lee Newton-Rhodes.
I'll start with my childhood. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. My mother was born there also, so I'm going back a few generations. Unfortunately, my parents divorced and my mother remarried, and so we moved up to Ohio for a few years in Cleveland. I went and spent 1 year in Ohio State, which I mentioned before, and then back down to Georgia State for college. My mom's still there. After college, I interviewed for accounting firms, and that's when I came up to New York. So I've been here for about 40 some odd years, but they go back down there to visit. That's in a nutshell, unfortunately, 2 broken homes, and in accounting by my profession as a CPA.
Awesome. What was the situation and what happened that made you think to yourself, hey, I think I could be the president of the United States?
That's a really great question. I don't know if y'all remember this is before the last election, going back, now it's on two elections. This is right before Hillary and Donald Trump declared. There was really nobody other than Hillary that was running on the Democratic side. Eventually, Bernie Sanders joined in, and then there was 3 other people whose names you probably don't remember: Martin O'Malley, Jim Webb, and one other. And I thought it was very sad that basically they were telling us who we could vote for, and it was Hillary or nobody at the time, and then Bernie Sanders, I think they got ahead of themselves. And I said, you know what? Why is the establishment, and this goes for both parties, it's neither Democrat or Republican thing, why are they basically telling us from a handful of people who we can vote for? Why can't the citizens decide that? We have the internet. We do everything electronically. Why can't someone just go to the people and say, you know what, I want to run, and let the people decide? So I had this crazy idea in my head. Historically, besides the establishment, people were restricted to run for the presidency or any office because they needed a lot of money. They needed the money basically to get name recognition, either TV, radio, print, what have you, and to get, especially in a national office, it's a lot of money. The millions or whatever it is. Now that we have the internet, where basically everything is free, you have social media, whether it's Facebook, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Instagram, whether it's TikTok, what have you, you can get your message out there. And if it resonates to the people, well, good for you. So I figured, you know what? This is a first. Let me try and see what happens. If what I'm saying speaks to the people, and this is before all this, the last two elections. I started this back in like March 2015. I said, you know what? Let's see what happens. I'll start telling the people who I am, what my values are, and what I would do, and what kind of president I would be, and see where it goes. And it takes time. It takes a lot of homework. It takes a lot of disappointment in terms of just building an audience on whatever platform you want to try. But eventually, you start getting these interesting connections with people you never would have connected with before, whether it's other politicians or whether it's the media or whether it's just influencers. And the journey itself, more so than the prize, obviously I would like the prize, but the journey itself has been a vastly, very rewarding experience, very enriching. And I'm just blessed that a lot of people have come into my life. I mean, I never would have met you guys without this.
It's true.
Yeah.
And it's, I'm meeting people in all different states, all different countries, across the world. And it's just really, really, a really amazing experience.
Wow, that's a heck of an answer.
The trick is,
My
though,
next question,
I'm sorry
last.
to interrupt you. I'm going.
No, you're fine.
No, I'm
Go
sorry. I
ahead. No, you're
apologize.
fine. Go ahead.
The trick is, elections basically, I think, they're decided with name recognition. This party also, a lot of people will vote Republican or Democrat. They don't care who the candidate is. They could be sleeping, they could be dead, what have you. They'll still vote for them. But a lot of it is name recognition also. And if you get enough name recognition, then you'll start showing up in the polls, and then you're relevant. Without that, you're not. And I still got 2 more years to go, and we'll see where it goes.
Right. My last question, I turn over to Mr. Cook, is what do you think of your qualifications to become the next president of the United States?
Yeah, I'm going to change that question a little bit, if you don't mind, because the
Have at it.
qualifications, basically, you just got to be an American citizen and be of age. That's basically it. But this is serious, whatever. Actually, it's kind of funny. A number of years ago, one of my kids asked me, says, Dad, be honest with me. Do you think you're the best person to be president? One of my kids asked me that question. So I said, well, no, but that's not a relevant question. They said, well, why not? He says, because not everybody's running. The better question is, of the people who are running, do you think you would make the best president? And for various reasons, a lot of people who are extremely qualified don't run. They don't want the pushback. They don't want their histories exposed for whatever other reason. They don't want to deal with the press. The commitment, what have you. Most people obviously don't run. Very few people run. I'm not sure where you guys are holding, but you're in America now, so I'm assuming that you're in love with this country the way I am. I think this is God's gift to humanity. I think it's the best place that a person could be of all countries. People dream of coming here from all over the world. And I said, you know what? If no one else is doing this, let me try. And as far as I know, in my experience, no one else has tried reaching out through the internet and just bypassing the whole establishment and system that selects people to run.
Those are some great answers, and I totally agree with you.
Very sweet.
The question I have for you is, you said the journey was rewarding, and I respect that. Can you elaborate a little bit more in detail about how the journey is so rewarding for you?
Yeah, what I found is I've been doing this for a long time, almost a decade.
Okay.
And as much as I might want the prize, whatever it is, in my case, it's the presidency, you can have your own, whatever. But if you don't enjoy the journey, you're not going to get up every day. You're not going to have a passion for it. And there'll be down times, there'll be slow times, there'll be disappointing times, what have you. But to stay focused and motivated and say, you know what? I got another day. I got another chance to do this, and just keep connecting with people. And you'll get some people who will say, those are your views, and they'll block you, they'll insult you, what have you. And you just have to be bigger than that and say, you know what? That's one person. That's they're entitled to it, what have you. But in order to be motivated on a daily basis and continue that day after day, month after month, year after year, you have to really want this. A number of years ago, I used to be a runner, and I got into marathon running. And as much as I enjoyed the race day itself, marathon running, especially in New York City, the New York City Marathon, they just ran it a week or so ago. It's an amazing race, and if you've never run a marathon, you should. It's a blast. But training for it is extremely difficult, especially because they run it in the fall, which means you got to train this thing for a year. I mean, you're running through, at least in New York City, through winters, through rain, through cold, through snow, and you have to fit it around your schedule with your family, your work, and whatever other obligations you have. You have to really want this, especially if you want to be competitive in that race. If you just want to finish the 26 miles by walking, good for you. Enjoy it. Have a great day. But if you want to run it, you can't fake that. You can't. You know, these people, even professional sports, any endurance sport, whether it's boxing, basketball, whatever it is, you pick the sport. A lot of grueling days training. But you have to enjoy the training more so than the prize. Otherwise, you're not going to put those hours in. So you can have a coach, but you have to have it inside of you. You
That's
have to
so
live and
true.
breathe this. I don't know, in terms of the Bible, I'm going to quote you a verse that I heard a number of years ago. It's Jeremiah. I believe it's the chapter 20, verse 9, in terms of fire in your bones. And you just have to have this burning desire that this is what you want to do.
Right.
And then the rest is easy.
That's it. You gotta get the desire. Once
And
you
leave
get
the
the
results up to
desire,
God, but the effort
I
is
agree.
yours.
Right. Once you get the desire, the universe follows right with you and helps you, propels you into what you want to do. I agree with that. And you said another
I'm
thing.
sorry, before you go on, I just want to mention one thing. I heard from a number of employers when they're interviewing, what's more important? Is it technical skills or is it attitude? There's a certain level of skills you need,
I believe
but
it's
in
attitude.
general, 100%. Why? Can I ask you why?
Well, I believe it's the way you approach things. You have to approach things in a proper attitude, whatever it may
Right?
be. And what Phil and us, what we talk about on this platform is kidney disease, transplants, all types of things like that. And I'm a coach, so I coach people with their kidney disease challenges. But the biggest thing is I coach people with their attitudes, keeping their attitude in a frame of mind to get healthy. And that's the attitude and the frame of mind I believe that has to work.
And a lot of employers, a little bit different is you can teach technical skills to someone who wants to learn.
Right.
Very hard to teach someone to have a really good attitude,
That's true.
to be enthusiastic about what they're doing. Because if they don't enjoy it, you can talk to the wall. It ain't gonna make a difference. But if
I
they
agree
come in
with
there
that.
hungry and wanting to learn, they're gonna be a really good employee or in person you want to be around.
Exactly. Prime example of that. I just want to piggyback off what you said. My nephew is a SEC college wide receiver coach. I won't say what team and things like that, but he's had some great recruits, and those recruits that are great, he says some of them don't work hard. Some of the other ones who get on the team and work hard and have the right frame of mind, the right attitude, propel past those kids that are, 5-star and things like that. All because their attitude and their frame of mind are working and they enjoyed the journey. They enjoyed working out. They enjoyed the exercising, the learning, and enjoyed it all the way through, opposed to some kids who just wanted to be the limelight of the game. And you watch those kids get better than the kids that are 5-star. So you're right about that. And that happens in all types of areas of life, no matter what it is.
100%.
I
And
totally
unfortunately, I don't know if you can teach that or not, but a lot of people just have that burning desire in whatever field that they want to excel, and it just propels them.
Right. Correct. You said another thing that was really, really powerful when you talk about being the president of the United States. You said name recognition. With that name recognition, how do you get your name out? And I know you said you've been doing this for a decade. And how do you get money behind you? Because it seems like for the last 10 times we voted for the president, it seems like, and I could be wrong, the person who made the biggest money, who made the biggest money mark, won. So elaborate on that, on how you will get money.
Historically, that's correct. But if you remember, when Trump initially started running,
He
he
had no money.
said he wasn't going to be taking money, and
Right.
putting that issue aside, that whether he ended up taking it or not, but he wasn't taken seriously by a lot of the press. They were making fun of him basically, and they gave him so much free media by
Mhm.
just covering him and covering the Donald Trump story as a joke. Um, and eventually, it caught up with him, but I think they were they were regretful that they gave him all that free press, because they made him, and they gave him a platform that he otherwise would not have. Had they just ignored him and made him pay his way, I don't think he would have been president.
I agree with that. And he was eccentric. He was talking what we call out of turn, and it was laughable. You would turn on the news and you would laugh like, listen to this guy. And
He was a class clown.
it was a class clown and it was entertaining. And last times we've been seeing these presidents, we've been seeing entertaining and things like that. And again, I pose the question, how would you raise capital for your, to go to different states and to push and all these things you have to do?
It's a good question. If it's based on capital, I don't think I have a snowball's chance in hell. But if it's based on name recognition, I think I do. Because as I've mentioned before, we have the free internet, social media, different platforms, what have you. And if you can get your content, your name out there, and I'm getting more and more people. I'm saying, would you come on my podcast? And other people watch those podcasts, and it's starting to snowball. What the results will be, I don't know. But it's all about, as we say, getting your name out there. And as people not gravitate, but resonate, that's the word, resonate to your message, they're more than willing to tell other people about it. They're more than willing to share your content. They're more than willing to have you on podcasts, on radio interviews, and you're bypassing all the restrictions and chains that money was providing for other people.
I totally agree with you on that, but do you believe it's going to take some capital if you say, for instance, you let's just say you get up there and you're making this name recognition.
I think if I think if I can get the name recognition out there enough and taken serious enough and poll enough, then I think in my case the Democratic Party would have to take me serious.
That's
And
another
then
question
once
I
the
have for
party
you.
takes you serious because the party wants to win,
Right.
then I think it's game over. And then I think I got a good shot at it. It's getting on. It's not that for me right now. My goal is to get on that debate stage, because once I'm on there, I think I'm covered. I think I'm good. It's just getting on
Okay.
there. And to get on there, you have to poll, because once you're polling high enough numbers, they got to take you seriously.
Right.
And that was one of the
Exactly.
problems
Simple.
the Republicans had with Trump. Once he was polling high enough, they couldn't just ignore him anymore,
Right.
because they knew that he would take his supporters with him wherever he went, whether it's third party or what have you. And right now, you have a lot of people, like it or not, who are diehard Trump fans, and whatever he says, they will do in terms of voting candidates.
I totally agree with you on that,
And he's
Lee.
doing that with no money now.
He is. You're right. And and I'm in Florida, and we're seeing people, Trump 24, and you're like, really, but it's happening, and you see the movement going with that. Some people going with that. With that being said, though, what party would you run for? Independent, Republican, Democrat,
Well,
and
I've been a
why?
Democrat since I first registered to vote back in Georgia, or after high, whatever. I registered as a Democrat. That was when Jimmy Carter was running for president. You remember Jimmy Carter, Philip?
Yep, I do. Peanuts. Yep, I
You
remember.
remember, okay.
Yep.
But when I moved up to New York, I just stayed as a Democrat. So I've been a lifelong Democrat. And you're going to, good question. You're probably going to be asking me, do my values, do they conflict or do they represent mainstream Democrats nowadays?
Right.
Okay. No, I'll be honest with you. Okay. But they did at the time when I first registered, and the party has changed a lot over the years. On the other hand, I truly believe this about the Democratic Party. There, as some of when Bernie Sanders started to run, and they welcomed him in, they said that they were a big tent party. They welcome all comers, and I believe they were honest when they said that. And I believe as long as someone is willing to work with them, then regardless of whether they agree with their views on the Second Amendment, on abortion, on immigration, on the First Amendment, what have you, there's somebody to talk to. And I think they would rather win with a candidate that is not 100% what they're looking for than lose to a Republican or what other party.
Okay. Now, when I'm 53 years old. I talk to a lot of people, and it seems like to me, now I could be wrong, but you tell me about this. It seems like people have liberal issues and Republican issues. You know what I mean? They're most people are on both sides of the fence. And you said you won't run as a typical liberal. What are some of the things that you will stand on?
You want to ask me specifically about any particular views, I'll answer. But
Okay, I can
but
tell
right
you.
now, what I see is, I'm sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say some of the things that concern us is health. That's one of our big topics, and that's what we talk about all the time is health. And what's your
I'm
views on
sorry,
health?
health or healthcare?
Healthcare, I
Health.
should say. Healthcare.
Okay, because there's a
Health.
big difference. Because I, as an American, in America, I think it's extremely sad that there's no emphasis on health for people. I think Americans as a whole, not you or me, are obese. And
I agree.
obesity leads to so many health problems, whether it's
I agree.
diabetes, whether it's heart problems, what have you. And also, obesity was a big predictor of how someone who got COVID, how they dealt with it.
Yes, it was.
Besides age, which you can't do anything about, it was certain comorbidities and obesity specifically. There was a strong link in hospitalization and death. And I don't think that we're as a whole are trying to slim down as a nation. You'll go to a park on a Sunday or a Saturday, and there'll be lots of people there. But the vast majority of people don't exercise after they get out of high school.
I
We
agree.
as Americans don't exercise. We don't eat right. We eat a lot of junk food. And I think that would a healthy lifestyle with exercise and eating would be the first thing in terms of making people healthier so they don't need the health care. Now the health care, I can go that route also, but I just like to back up and say, prevention is so much more important to your lifestyle than a life of surgeries and medications and just pill popping.
Right. I have a question for someone in the audience. It says the question is, what's the top 3 issues that he plans to address if he's voted into the office?
That's a great question. As of right now, crime is one. Both from crime being committed on the streets because we are a land of rule of laws. Because if we don't have the laws, then it's just everybody for themselves. And then what do we have? Nobody's safe. In New York City. Okay, but that's half of the crime. The other half of the crime is the criminal justice system, whether it's people put on in capital punishment or just dealt unfairly in terms of by prosecutors, because unfortunately you have prosecutors who want really good track records in terms of notches on the belt. But that's not the job of a prosecutor to convict people.
Right.
Prosecutor is to follow only convict people who are guilty. And if the person you find out, through the trial or through evidence isn't really the person you're looking for, then I think it's disgusting that you continue the process and put this person away. And in fact, I'm reading a book now. Actually, I'm reading 2 books. One is on capital punishment, and the other one is I forgot the name of it. Is just on the criminal justice system, how unfairly people have been treated.
When you
Obviously,
talk about crime, Would you do anything with the prison system as far as, prison systems have went public now where people can get, you can get on prison systems on the stock market where if I wanted to, I could put some money in there and get paid. Even I seen an article last week where the prison systems were mad because the prisons weren't full.
I mean,
Again, they're on the and they're making money with people being in the prisons. And when you look at the percentage of most prisoners, they're African Americans. So what would you, how would you, take on that?
if I understand you correctly, because there's an incentive there to keep people in the prisons.
Correct.
Yeah, that's not my area of expertise, but I see
Correct.
where you're going, and I agree with you. We don't want to incentivize prisons because, and then we can go into education also, but prisons are not in the business of filling up beds. Prisons are in the business of, if people need to be secluded from the population for whatever reason, then there's a place for these people to go.
Yes, Lee, but
But
I
we don't
agree
want.
with Lee, I agree with what you're saying, but prison systems now are in the business of warehousing people. And that's where they're getting the money, and that's where the stock exchange is going also. And so if you look at I agree with what you're saying from a criminal justice standpoint. Hey, we want to keep
Right.
these places clean. We want to we want to
Are they doing a better job than the government in terms of health, safety, and in terms of making sure that these people are only there that need to be there?
I get what you're saying, and I clearly understand that. But I still say the prison systems now are in the business of warehousing people because they're making so much money off that. We even had there was a documentary out, the 13th Amendment, I believe is what it was called, where you had judges steamrolling young kids into the prison systems and were getting back pay from these big corporations. These things are happening, even though, and so when you look at these things, the question I have for you is these things are affecting people throughout our country. And how do we oppose these things? And when I say that, if we could have something where like, hey, we're going to cut this out, we're going to stop this, or do something like that, I think running on something like that, and I'm not telling you what your platform should be, but those things resonate with the people. And it seems like, when we're talking about politics now,
Right.
a lot of people aren't believing in the Republicans or the Democrats. They think it's just one team. They think
It
it's
is.
just
I'm going to stop you right there, and I apologize, but I do believe it's one team. I think the idea of a two-party system is a charade.
that's
It's
right.
both of them against the American citizen, and they take turns, and which is why nothing ever gets done. Like immigration, for example. Well, Democrats complain when the Republicans are in there. Why don't you guys do this? But then when the Republicans are, they just never get things done. And you have this DACA thing, which is not legal because Congress never passed it. Why not? If it's such a good idea, let them pass it. But they complain then, like when Trump wanted to cancel it. Well, if you just pass it and make it law, and they're not doing that. And now we have the southern border, which isn't secure. So if you don't want it secure, then change the law and open the border. If you want it secure, let's secure the thing. And I think it's unfair to the people who are affected by this, whether it's people who are affected by the criminal justice system or the immigration or what have you, and whether these private prisons are substandard, that obviously should be addressed because there should be standards in terms of health for these people in there, and for their safety also. They're entitled to that.
I agree with everything you're saying right there, but when you get in, it's just, and I know you don't have these answers right now, but how do we implement these things in a way where people can be affected in the good? Because the way the systems are going right now, just like you said, with healthcare, we have
But
obesity running amok. Even though we have more information, you have gyms, you have all this information, you have gyms and everything on each corner. In the 70s, we didn't have any gyms around, and people were a lot better in health. All those things. You didn't see diabetes as much. You didn't see high blood pressure. You didn't see any of these things. But in the information age, we have so much information, yet and still, we still have so many people obese. That is causing a challenge with our Medicaid and Medicare system. Like you just said, all these things, how do we stop the snowball that's going down the hill? You know, we can talk about these things all the time, but how do we
Right.
implement
It's a great
programs to
question.
stop this?
That's a great question. One is obviously personal responsibility, but that's very hard. It's easy for one person to tell it to somebody else, be more responsible with fill in the blank. But and whether the schools can do that or not, I don't know. And it may be unfair of me to say this, but I'm going to say it anyways. Hollywood, you know, the TV, the movies, what have you, they affect people in tremendous ways for good and for bad. Whether it's with the drugs, whether it's promiscuity, or whatever it is, they glorify violence, they glorify drugs. What do you expect from the kids? What do you expect from other people? So if you would have more, not necessarily spiritual content, but more meaningful content, more productive content on the living a healthy life, which would include exercise, which would include eating, what have you, I think it would affects people. Every time there's a movie that's a blockbuster movie on chess or on football or running, whatever it is, you see a change in behavior of people for a period of time. But in more content that we would have like that on an ongoing basis. This is one thing that bothers me. Now, I don't understand it, and maybe you can enlighten me. Why you have people out there, actors, I know they're doing it for the dollar, who glorify violence. Don't you see what it's doing to our youth? Why do you do that?
I agree with you. I'm from the era of when hip hop was about dancing, about having fun. You know, I'm from that era of hip hop. I've watched the evolution of hip hop now, where everybody wants to, you know, be the gangster and kill each other and kill your dudes in your neighborhood that you think you own and you don't own the
And
neighborhood.
unfortunately, it's affecting them also, because every so often you hear of these rappers who are being killed over nothing. We just had, I don't know the guy's name, a few weeks ago over a dice game or whatever it was.
Yeah, from the Migos, Takeoff. Rest in peace, brother. But I agree with you on these things. So, but again, all these challenges we have, Lee, I'm just questioning, like, and they're making billions and billions of dollars. Somebody up high is making, the 1% is making billions and billions of dollars off the challenges of the
Money is a
common
very
man.
strong motivator to a lot of people. Very few people will say, you know,
Correct.
this is not what I want. This is not the life. This is not how I want to be remembered.
Exactly. We're going to go to a commercial now, Lee, and then we'll get right back with you. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Hey, what is going on, world? Edward, Mr. Why Not Drake is here. Hope you all are having a fabulous day. I just got on here real quick just to ask you all to please consider supporting the Why Not Foundation annual Why Not Impact Lives holiday drive, where we go across the country delivering gift bags to pediatric transplant patients and families at various treatment facilities and hospitals. And this year, we'll be adding a little extra seasoning by treating families to dinner. We'll be giving them gift cards so they can go out and buy turkey, some ham, chicken, whatever they're into, and just bring their families together. Because, you know, we're all about connecting and bringing families together and brightening the lives of people. So I ask you all to please consider supporting us by visiting www.whynot.org, spelled YNOTT.org, to make a donation to our holiday drive session. And also, I ask you all to follow us on all social media platforms at Why Not Connect, spelled YNOTTCONNECT. And just like my hat say, just believe, and I'm trusting and believing that you all will support our efforts this year and help us impact and brighten the lives of many people. Why not have a great day, and God bless. Take care.
I apologize.
You're fine. You're perfectly.
You're fine.
This is one of the books I'm reading now.
Justice Mercy. Okay, okay. I'm writing that down so I can check it out also.
Yeah, the other book I can't find. It's on capital punishment. I wasn't expecting the question, otherwise I would have had it sitting right here. But this is an amazing book. It's also in our time too.
Right. Phil says I can question all day, so you got to be ready for me.
No, I got, just real quick before I give it back to you, Mr. Cook. So my question for you is how much of a role do you believe the federal government should have in determining how we as individuals spend our dollars?
The federal government.
Yeah.
That's what he
I don't
said.
know if you don't like this answer, but ideally, I don't think they should be in the business. I don't see where it's mentioned in the Constitution, and I think the smaller the government, the better. I think people are better able to know what their needs are and better able to spend their money.
I agree with what you said. Smaller government. I love that. But it seems like the Republicans and the Democrats aren't trying to have a smaller government. And you know, their footprint is getting
But
bigger and bigger as we live. So how do you
which
do
is
that?
that just plays into the idea that it's really not the Republicans and the Democrats. It's really Washington against us. And it's really when the Republicans, this is one of my gripes with the Republicans, they will play a good game in terms of telling people they're for smaller government.
Right.
But you don't see that when they're in power. You know, when was the
Right.
last time they cut a department? They went downsized budgets and stuff like that. They don't do that.
Right.
And
Exactly.
that was one of my, as much as, Trump may have done really great things, like depending on where you are on the fence, he signed those budgets and his name was on the line. So he didn't bring the government down. It went up over him also. And I hold him accountable for that.
I truly
You know,
agree with that for sure.
I agree as well.
Yeah. Do you have any more questions, Phil, right now?
Yeah, one more
Okay.
quick one.
Before you go, I just want to make a comment. You had said something before, Tifro. And I think this is one thing I believe. This is a representative government that we have. They work for us. And
Correct.
there should be a level of transparency there, whether it's transparency how the prisons are run, transparency how the dollars are spent. And I forgot you had said something before. I got what it was, but everything should be transparent. And when the government hides from us or whatever it is, to me, that leaves a very, very poor taste. And it tells us that they're not working for our interest, whether it's the healthcare, the education system, or fill in the blank.
I agree with that. Lee, let me ask you this though. You know, when we look at the politicians, we're always like, they talk such a good great game. They're eloquent. Everything they're saying they're gonna do. And what the challenge is, as soon as they get in office, we don't see any of these things implemented. Now I know as like even you'll be a Democrat if you got in office, you would have Republicans going against you. Even if you wanted to do the greatest things ever, they still will try to block you from these things. How do we prevent that? How do we could say President Lee has one of the best establishments we've ever seen, but yet and still the Republicans will somehow try to negate what you have going on. How do we prevent that? And you have a program that can help everybody countrywide. How do we stop something like that?
First of all, I think it's civility. I think it's talking to people. And when people disagree with you, not this name calling and isolating them, what have you, say, well, what is about it, my program, that you don't like? What is it? And trying to understand other people. I think this is politics for sure, but I find this in life. A lot of times people who don't like other people for whatever reason, they make it personal as opposed to the positions. And they don't make an effort to try and understand, because very rarely in life is the other person 100% wrong on any issue. You may disagree with them and you may feel they're wrong, but you should really make an effort to try and understand where they're coming from. The criminal justice system, in terms of letting people out, not letting people out, in terms of immigration, should we have more people come in, less people come in? Talk to people, say, well, what is it about my positions that you don't like? And can I better explain it to you? Do you think I'm being too aggressive, not aggressive enough? But talking to people and on the issues, and not talking to people and name calling and making about personalities.
Right, right, right. That goes back to
Because
attitude
once
right
someone
there.
loses I find this in life. I'm sorry, I apologize. Frequently in debating, once someone either can't debate because they know they're wrong, or when they lost it, they start making it personal.
Correct. Correct.
And they get in there, and then it's all over. You're in the mud, and then nothing's solved from that.
I agree. I agree. Go ahead, Phil. You had another question.
I feel are you muted?
Phil, you might be muted.
Yep, I was. Thank you.
I apologize. I
Um,
can't read lips.
what specifically would you do to lower healthcare costs that would avoid the predictable backlash regarding rationing? And more or less, what I'm referring to is just as an example, we have a ton of people that are on transplant lists, on dialysis, that would just rather stay on dialysis than to have the transplant because they can't pay for their post transplant medications.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that, but do you mind if I ask you a question? How are they affording the dialysis and the treatment they're getting now?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I guess and Tafaro, please correct me if I'm wrong. The insurance that they get from dialysis is completely different from, I guess, post transplant. I guess
Okay.
all that switches after you have your transplant because in their eyes, you're no longer in need of that medical insurance the level that is at when you're on dialysis.
And
So
dialysis is cheaper than the transplant?
well, it's
No,
not so much the transplant that's the issue. It's the medication that needs to be taken for the rest of your life after your transplant. That's the issue
Okay.
at this point.
So there's no incentive then for the insurance companies to approve the medication you're saying because the cost for them is prohibitive, but they're okay with paying for the dialysis for the rest of their life.
yes, because 95% of people on dialysis are with Medicaid, Medicare. Now, when Nixon was in president in the late 60s, he passed a bill that allowed anybody that had end stage renal failure to be placed on dialysis, and Medicaid, Medicare would provide their treatment and their medications. Then they passed a bill that said after you get a kidney transplant, after 3 years of the transplant, we no longer take care of your medications. And that's what Phil's talking about. He says after 3 years, he's saying a lot of people don't want to get a transplant because after 3 years, the government will not take care of your medications. Now, understand these medications are immune suppression and medications, and these medications are expensive. A monthly medication can cost anywhere from $100 to $1,000 a month. That's how much your medication can cost. And a lot of times when people are on Medicaid, Medicare already, they can't afford anything like that. So they just tend to stay on
No,
dialysis.
no, I understand that. And you're saying there's no generic medication that
Some of them
bring it
can be
cost.
generic, but sometimes when you're depends on what kind of transplant you have, you might have to get brand name.
Okay,
And even
I'm
the
not.
generics are
Yeah.
expensive.
Okay, you guys are catching me, but on this because I'm not an expert on this, but from what you're telling me, the system's broken. It's not working for the people who
Exactly.
need it.
Right.
Exactly.
Because to me, that's idiotic.
Yeah. The
It makes no
system's
sense.
Yeah, the system's broken to the point like Phil stated. Phil said, we have people that would just stay on dialysis. I'd rather stay
No,
sick,
which is dumb.
but they do it. They don't,
No,
they
and
like,
I understand why they do it. I'm not saying they're wrong for doing it. I understand why they're doing it. And I would probably do the same thing, whatever, because I just, whatever, with the cost and over life, whatever. But if the system is incentivizing for them to make that decision, that's
right,
a dumb policy.
right.
Am
I
I
agree.
wrong? And I think
Yeah,
it's insensitive.
right. It is very, very insensitive, man. And you know, when we talk to you about these type of questions, I clearly understand yours are going to be a lot of things you and your team are going to have to know, and you don't know anything like this. You're just learning on the fly. It's like build it as you fly it. So, you know, we can go in depth in those things like that. Or you might want to hire somebody like myself to be on your team who can help you with these healthcare challenges that I know firsthand.
Yeah. I hear. Yeah, there's a big learning curve.
It's a very big learning curve, and I've been doing it since I was 18 years old, so I'm well immersed in it. So again, so with that being said, though, I appreciate somebody like yourself to have the gumption to want to take on something like that because when you hear these things, you're like, wow, that person wants to do that because let's keep it real, you're gonna have the hardest job in the country.
Yes, period. You're right. On the other hand, when was the last time we had a president of the people that people could relate to, as opposed to elitists from the establishment, career
Right.
politicians who have no idea how much a gallon of milk is, for example, or is one of the people from rural America, as opposed to these coastal cities.
Exactly. I agree. I agree.
We
So
basically have just a few cities now. Forget out states. We basically have maybe 5 cities who are running the country because of this,
exactly.
New York, LA, and a couple others, and that's it. And everybody
Yep.
else is like irrelevant. But
I
that's
agree.
most of America.
I agree. I totally agree with that for sure. Well, Lee, I don't have any more questions. It was wonderful meeting you, and it was wonderful talking
Well,
to
it was a
you.
pleasure for me.
And again, if you do become the president, keep healthcare as one of your main things, and look after you. You will remember this conversation you had with two
100%.
guys who were transplant recipients, and you'll be like, "Hold on, I want to go back to that bill about transplants because I understand this is affecting people more than I thought."
But that,
So
that one issue brought up to me, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. I understand why the government, from a cost standpoint, but so what?
right. And there's going to be a lot of these things that aren't going to jive up to you because you're going to be like, that doesn't even make any sense either. And probably with one swell pen, you can get these things corrected. You can just do and get them corrected in the proper way. That's going to help the people because you sound like you're definitely for a person that's for the people. And I commend that for sure.
I appreciate it. You're very sweet.
Thank you. You're welcome. And it was good talking to you. Go ahead, Phil.
So my last question is, what are the last words that you would like to tell the nation, the people watching, um, if you're campaigning and you're giving a speech just within the next 2 to 3 minutes, just a short snippet.
No, I appreciate that. One is, it's going to sound cliche, whatever, what do you have to lose? The obvious, and I'm saying the reason I'm saying this is because those in power for so many years obviously have been messing up the government, messing up the country. We have inflation all the way sky high now. It's been horrible. And the wealthy, inflation doesn't really affect. But to you and I, it does. To most people, it does. To seniors, it does. The cost of gasoline, the cost of fuel, food, food, all that it affects. In terms of crime, that affects us. In terms of the wealthy and the politicians, crime doesn't affect them. They got their gates, they got their private security. It doesn't affect them. They're so secluded from our life. When they make laws and then they exempt themselves, whether it's COVID restrictions or Social Security, all these systems and stuff like that. They have their own healthcare plans. They're not affected by these kidney decisions. If they should have the need for that. We need somebody, myself or somebody else, who understands people, relates to people, and relates to the country we're having. And the issue in terms of big government, real estate taxes on private homes is getting unaffordable to so many people, and the rents are going up, and whether it's rent control or what have you, whenever government gets involved, I think they mess things up. And we should have minimal government, such as the military. Other than that, from a federal standpoint, what are they doing? That's not the way it was set up. We have cities and states, they can do whatever they want. Why is the federal government getting involved in all this stuff? The cost of the administration, the bureaucracy, the laws and stuff. You have the rules on barber shops, and I can go on. Like, why is the government getting involved? Why does the government feel they need to babysit people? Get them out of our lives. The Department of Education, I think, started with JFK.
Yeah.
It's not in the Constitution. We don't need it on a federal level. It's okay. Let the states decide how they want to educate their students. Why is the federal government there? Why is the federal government in the student loan business? And they're not in the car loan business, they're not in the house loan business. If someone can't afford college, let the colleges be on the hook, not the taxpayer. And then now, I guess some federal judges are stopping Biden, from forgiving the student loans. He wanted the taxpayers to pick up the bill. Well, taxpayers either didn't go to college themselves, so why should they pay for somebody else? Or they went to college and they did a work study program and they didn't take out loans, or they took out loans and they paid them off. Why should all these different groups of people be on the hook for somebody else who, for whatever reason, did not get a major, which was their choice, did not give them an income to pay back the loan? You guys are just getting me started, and we're going to go way over. I apologize.
Hey, well,
There's
check
a lot of
this
stuff
out.
I'm sure that
Let me say this. Hopefully we can revisit you in a year, 6 months, whatever it may be, and see
Y'all
how
got my
everything's
number.
going. Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to ask you some more questions, especially as how this our country is evolving. Things are happening rapidly, especially with we're in the information time right now. So let's, if we can, revisit you 6 to 8 months to a year, if that's okay.
Be my pleasure.
Great.
Philip, thank you for reaching out.
Definitely. Oh, not a problem at all. Not a problem. I appreciate you agreeing to join us this evening. It's good to see that there is somebody out there that is for the people. So, again, we appreciate your time. Definitely, like Mr. Cook said, we'll come back and revisit you 6 months to a year, whatever your schedule permits you to be able to join us. And like I said, I know Tifiro he held back today on questions, so I know he got some in his back pocket. Like, yeah, I'm gonna use these on the next one. So again, definitely appreciate your time, your commitment to following through, to becoming this great nation's leader. And like I said, again, we'll definitely come back to you for part two to this wonderful interview. So we'll be back on Thursday with a presentation by Jessica Harlicker, who will be presenting to chronic kidney disease patients on food substitutes for the holiday season. So ways that you can still eat good and still follow your plan, as in if you're low potassium, low phosphorus, that nature, things that we all pre or post transplant need to follow and get educated on. So again, Lee, we appreciate your time, and we will see you all on Thursday. Have a great night.
Y'all have a good night. God bless.